And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. With me today, I actually have a very special guest, and that is Dean Simone. And I had the privilege to be able to interview him for Game Day. He's just a phenomenal actor, a great friend of the channel. Of course, him and I actually did a review for A Bronx Tale. It was a pleasure to be able to do that with him. So, without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's welcome Dean Simone back to the show again. I'm excited to have him on here. Let's do it. And hey, Dean, how are you?
John, I am great. How you doing, my brother?
Doing fantastic. It's always a great day to be able to just talk to you and talk about your career and where it's going and what you've been up to. It's been a year. I cannot believe it's been a year since we did A Bronx Tale
I
and
know. It's
everything, and that was like the
unbelievable,
last
right?
time.
I know. It flies. It really does. But it's good to be back, and thank you for having me. I love your guys' podcast, and it's always an honor to be here, and you're a good guy.
Thank you, man. I do appreciate that. So here's the thing. You ended up posting a little picture of you being in this little HBO show called Winning Time. And it's based off. And here's the thing: it was based off of the 1970s. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's in the 70s, right? In that era.
It is in the 70s and early 80s. So the
That's
actual
what I thought.
inception of the show is when Jerry Buss buys the Lakers in the late 70s. And then it progresses on to when they drafted Magic Johnson and then up through the 80s. So it's covering that span, which is it's such a nostalgic time for so many people, not just sports fans, but certainly the Lakers and the Celtics and my team, the Sixers, certainly had a lot going on there, and it's very they really take their time to make sure it's done right, and they really cover that era so well. So people, not your age, Sean, but my age.
Well, thank you for telling me I wasn't born during that time, so I do appreciate that. But it also makes me feel good
But
because
your
I'm actually
parents will
younger.
tell you all
So,
about it.
but you know what though? I'm actually fascinated with this story because of the fact ever since I saw the movie Ear with Ben
Yeah,
Affleck and everything, it got me more
right,
invested into the behind the scenes kind of thing of how the NBA is run and also how they pick their person to be the front man for their organization, though, too, as the go to person. And Magic
right.
Johnson is definitely the standout in that era at that time because Magic Johnson was even in the role model class that I was in in the 90s, though, too. So
Hmm.
we actually, I still remember that big, huge Magic Johnson billboard that we would actually have, where our PE teacher would make us go and jump up and try to touch him because he's so tall
Right.
and everything. But the thing that I like about this is the fact that you worked up to this level of going into an HBO show, and I bet you're like, okay, how did you manage to get that role? I know it's only a short part, but what was the process like? Did you have to audition for it, or did your agent or something say, "Hey, look, man, I think I got this perfect role for you, and I think that you would be perfect for it"? What's the process like for that?
Well, it is an audition process, and I think that like anything in life, I think you use the key word. It's always a process and not an event. So I believe that really trying to do the best work you can do and chipping away at things to just keep doing good work and keep getting seen, whether it's a small movie or an indie movie like we do with Game Day, or small parts in anything, series or features. I think you have to basically go in with the same approach if you have a five and under as if you have a lead role, which is bringing that life to the character. And I think that for me, it was very dedicated and very focused on moving things more into that world of the type of series and the shows and the television shows and the movies that I really wanted to work on. And I have to say, as crazy as this is, and I know this sounds like the usual actor speak, but I have to say, Winning Time was one of the shows that I focused on, and I said to my wife, I want to get on that. I watched that first season and I absolutely loved it. I love Adam McKay. I love the sensibility of the show. And I feel like I focused in on what I wanted to do. And then John, I came home one day and my agent had a audition notice saying they want you to audition for it. I literally had 2 hours and I went online, and I was a person who read Jim Murray absolutely religiously. I really adore Jim Murray because I'm a writer
Wow.
too, and I love him. So for me, as soon as I saw that, I instantly knew, because I literally read Jim Murray every day. No joke. So I already knew his writing, but in terms of his character, how he acts, how he talked, I really didn't know much about him. And I went online, and there was literally, John, there was literally 2 videos on Jim Murray. That
That's
was it.
nuts, though, man.
Yeah.
So basically,
So
I know it's challenging for an actor. It's like, okay, so I have 2 videos to choose from, and then I have to try and figure out the angle that I want to play him, and based on these 2 videos, and then you have to try and make it your own. I know that has to be challenging.
well, the 2 videos, both of them, one was on Charlie Rose, and another one, believe it or not, was on this local show in Palm Springs, where I believe he was like best friends with the host's husband. And so that was it. That was all I had. But I watched it and I got a lot of tells in terms of where he's from, what his background was like. He was very forthcoming with his background. I knew he was a New Yorker. He's got a very distinctive gait to the way he talks, the way he holds himself, of course, the glasses and the approach. And I could see, as we all do this in terms of, there's people we look up to. And I think whether we do it consciously or we do it unconsciously, we pick up the affectations of those people in some respects. So I was looking at him and I definitely saw, and he said it in one of the interviews where he was friends with Humphrey Bogart, who he liked Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart hung out with him because he was like a beat writer. So I know he was like hero worshiping him. And I could see how he took a little of that on. I'm a big student of old movies. I love old movies, all the actors from that era and actresses from that era. So I looked at it all, and John, I literally did it in breakneck speed, and I auditioned. I found the hook that I wanted with his voice and his approach, and I went for it, and I got it out right away, and I just was really, really, really thrilled to be able to play him, because, as I said, I read the column every day, and knowing
Right.
his cadence and the way he talked definitely helped as well in terms of his writing.
Right, because there's a difference between knowing how somebody writes versus how someone speaks, and you're trying to connect the two, and then you also have to try to figure out the angle that you have to play it on because you know his writing, but you don't know him as a person or how he speaks or anything. So it's a lot more challenging for you.
It is,
So
but I'll tell you, John, it is literally it's what it's about. There's there's something so incredibly, and I don't want to get like too crazy, weird, esoteric about it, but there's something really amazing about the fact that we all wear these human suits, essentially, and what we are inside, we're all kind of connected. We are connected, and I think that who we are, the us in here, we bring that to whatever we do, whether it's hosting a podcast or acting in a television show or movie, or playing on stage, or being a realtor. It doesn't, whatever it is, we bring that well that's in us that I believe is all connected. And people recognize it if they're like, well, I see that truth. I see that true self in there. So really what it comes down to is having an ear to identify what that human suit is and say, okay, it's this. And here's the hook. And here's the deal. And then you've got to ground it in who you are, and have faith in the people that hired you to say, what your essence is the same as his essence. So as an actor, if you can deliver what we need in terms of vocalization and look, and by the way, that wardrobe and makeup department, I cannot begin to tell you how absolutely first rate and amazing they are. and they are so into it and so deeply into getting the right stuff. And everything that you see on that show, these are vintage clothes. These are clothes these
I can
people want.
definitely tell.
Yeah,
With just the trailers alone, and I watched a couple of episodes. They definitely got the look right. It actually does feel like you're in the 1970s in that era.
yeah.
And picking the clothes and getting the clothes, I have to commend them for getting everything right and accurate, because one little thing can throw somebody off. It's like, well, that's inaccuracy right there with the clothing line and stuff like that. But they do a fantastic job of what they're doing. That whole entire design team.
They're amazing. And to that point, this is something that I do want to say is like, of course I support the strike, and I am thankful that our union reps are out there and they're fighting for us. And I do want to say that not just myself, but a lot of us actors that are out here in Los Angeles and in New York and around the country and the world, we really feel for the people behind the scenes that are really not able to work right now. You know, the actors get the press and the writers get the press, and the writers, God bless them, it doesn't go without writers.
Right,
Um,
and that's something I wanna bring up real quick though too, Dean, since you mentioned everything like that, because I actually have a writer friend. He's going through some hard times and everything too, because he's a writer in LA,
right,
and he's struggling. And as a matter of fact, he's getting ready to probably have to get evicted. And he's one of those types that hates to ask for help. And as a matter of fact, he has a GoFundMe, but it's just heartbreaking to see someone struggle, and also too, they're going to allow people to bleed out before they even treat people right. That's not right. I have a big problem, an issue with that. With these, with everything that's going on, because writers should have the same equal pay, if not close to the same pay as an actor does or anything. Because here's the thing: people forget, and I didn't know this up until the Stranger Things director pointed this out. The writing doesn't stop once it reaches production and
right. Oh
everything.
no,
The writing continues
it does.
as the thing is progressing. It's not like a movie where basically you have your script, you're ready to go, and that's it. This,
Mhm.
they go on ahead, they look at something within the storyline itself, and they change the certain things while the filming is going on. So you
Right.
need your writers on board for a TV series so the way it can actually have the legs that it needs to grow and allow the actor to grow too with that character. Otherwise, you're gonna have a mess of a TV series and everything too. So,
Yeah. Listen, there's a famous saying. I don't know if you've seen the documentary Junior, or excuse me, Junior, Senior, that Robert Downey Jr. made about his father. His father was a filmmaker, a guerrilla filmmaker. By the way, if you or your audience hasn't seen that, I cannot recommend it higher. It is just a beautiful, touching, brilliant documentary. It's called Senior, and not that Robert Downey Jr. needs my a-okay on his thing. I just want to say it is really phenomenal. And there's a comment that Robert Downey Sr. makes in it, which I thought was it's just such a great quote, where he said that anyone can act, some people can direct, but nobody can write. And I
I
think there's so much truth to that, because writing is such a it's such a lost art. It's such a difficult art. My youngest son, who's 16, every one of my sons are writers, and they're writers in different ways. My oldest son writes poetry. My middle son is a musician and a songwriter, and my youngest son, who's 16, is already writing screenplays at 16. So, and I'm a writer, so I appreciate and completely support the writer's plight and totally understand it. But I just do want to say, not just the writers, but there are gaffers and grips and lighting people and sound people and so many people. And for your audience that's out there, and I'm sure they're film experts like you are, and they understand how it goes. But for those who are not, just to let you know, the work, the real work, those people do. And they work their asses off, and they're out of work right now. So this is affecting them in a major, major, major way. And myself as an actor and as a writer, and I'm sure there's a lot of other actors and writers out there like me, we want to say, hang in and thank you. And really, I'm sorry that they have to go through this stuff, because these are the real, true salt of the earth people in Hollywood. They're who make Hollywood go, and they're taking a hit right now.
They are. They definitely are. And you know, I was actually having a water cooler conversation with one of my coworkers and everything who's not understanding it or anything like that. Well, they have to make close to the same amount of money as I said, no, no, no. I said, you're talking about thousands of dollars. You're not talking about like a couple of million. You're talking about the minimum that they probably make is between $15,000 to $20,000, if that. Not even enough to pay their studio apartment if that's what they have. I
Right,
said the studios look to them as like bottom feeders in a sense, and they're feeding the machine, and therefore they know the studios know that they need them, so therefore they're going to keep them around. But for how long? Because
right,
next thing you know it, you have these writers who's wanting more money. Next thing you know it, they're letting those writers go and hire somebody else because they know they can hire them up for cheaper pay,
right.
and because they're trying to get their foot in the door too, so they're like, okay, so it's a win-win situation. I'll get rid of the original writers that we have, and then go on ahead, hire someone for a cheaper cost. And therefore, it saves us money, and we can keep this machine going.
Hmm.
But I like how everybody's making a stand now, to where it's like, enough's enough. We deserve the same equal pay as everybody else does. We don't deserve to just get treated $15,000 to $20,000 to where I can't even afford my own studio apartment out in LA or anything.
Right.
So I like how SAG is behind everyone. I like how, everybody's for each other and supporting each other. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But I just wish that more people on the outside would actually understand it a little bit more, because of the fact that, it doesn't just affect the writers and the actors or anything like that either. It also affects the viewers. It also affects the way that the way I do things on my channel and my podcast too. So
Right.
in order for me to be in this medium, I have to care about what's going on and
Right.
everything, and support the strike, even though I'm not part of SAG or anything like that. But I fully support it because I'm a movie lover. I'm passionate about what I do. I care about what I do, and I care about the people that I interview and everything too. Because without Movie Lovers Unite, without the actors, without the writers, there's no podcast. That's the way I see it.
Well, first of all, in terms of you as a podcaster, one thing is super clear. First of all, you're informed, and second of all, you really care, and you can tell both of those things, and that means a lot. I think there's a misconception, and this is easy to do. It's certainly something that I did. I mean, I grew up, especially as a super, young artist in my 20s, and I was literally working on network television, playing roles, and then playing in punk rock bands at night. And it was a strange, it was a strange juxtaposition, but it was heady, and I learned a lot, and I learned a lot of both sides of it. I hope people understand that. Yeah, there's greed on both sides of the line. There's greed everywhere, but there's also decent people, and sometimes I think what it comes down to, and it's a hard thing to understand. I have these conversations with my sons a lot. We definitely want to assign, well, I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm wrong, or I'm wrong and you're right. But in a lot of times, everybody is right in a certain respect. And I think that sometimes our own morals and viewpoints on things, or our own upbringings, make us see things a certain way. This goes for writers versus producers, producers versus actors, you know, Russians versus Americans. It's all this verse stuff. And what it really comes down to is it's really not about that. And if we really can honestly realize that in certain respects, unless, of course, you're talking about horrible things like Hitler and World War II and genocide, which there is no right to that. But if you're, or civil rights, pre civil rights and that stuff. But for the most part, there's a little right in what everybody has to say. And my hope, my prayer, my intention is that we get that and we understand it, because, I've met and worked with a lot of these producers, and you know what? They're really good people, and they were people that acted too, and they have love for the craft, and they have love for the medium, as certainly these actors do too. And everyone's working very hard. So I'm really hoping that we can live in a more bipartisan world. Maybe that's ideal, an ideological impossibility. I don't know, but my viewpoint is the more we can do that, the better we're going to be, and that starts right here in this strike. And
I
yes,
agree.
you know,
I
definitely
also
have been. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. I just feel like at the point though too, some people are argumentative to the point where it's like everybody wants to be right, and
You're, yeah,
and they want to be validated because they think in their own minds that they're right. But you
right.
also have to hear the other person out though too, because you also have to hear them out. You also have to have a caring and passionate heart. Otherwise, you're gonna lose people if your heart is hardened to the point where you don't want to listen to anybody because you think in your own peripheral vision and everything that you're right and everything when you and that's the bottom line. Everybody wants to be right, and that's why we have so much conflict. Is the fact that everybody wants to be right versus hearing other people's problems and everything, and that's why things don't get resolved.
John, that's such a great point. And I think if we really, as we all can, well, I'm going to speak to myself because this is something that I've struggled with so much in my life. If we really realize that in a certain respect, like I said, horrible psychopaths aside, that everybody is right in their own way. I have friends that I cannot begin to tell you how much I love them. I love them as people. I respect them. I just think they're the best. And, their political viewpoints are diametrically opposed from mine. And I don't think one iota less of them because that's how they feel. To me, there's validity on all sides of the coin. That's why I feel like in our day and age, as informed as people are, and young people like yourself, who's obviously very well read, very open hearted, as well as being open minded, I really believe that we need options that are something beyond either or, because I think life is so far beyond either or, and I think unfortunately with this strike, some of it has gotten perceived as that for the writers versus the producers, for the producers versus the actors. But I think certainly if everyone doesn't know, and I'm sure I know a lot of producers are actors. A lot of producers do both. A lot of producers started as actors. They started as writers. This is kind of a stalemate that I feel like we can get through. And I really do believe that cooler hearts can, cooler heads and cooler hearts can prevail. And we can really look at the situation and realize we're all kind of on the same side. And not to get too heavy in the situation, but I feel the same way about Republicans and Democrats and all this gridlock that we've got going on right now. It's really about just making this world a better place for our children, making this world a better place for our elderly so we can take care of them, letting the middle class survive and do well. And I don't think anyone's against that. I think there's very few people that don't feel those things. So I just think that we have to stop trying to be right and start trying to understand what it is that the other side is saying, what the other side wants.
Most definitely, because I think that you can get a lot done by not being arguing over each other and just hold back the reins a little bit. It's like, well, okay, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to write down what you have to say. Your points are going to be valid, and I'll check with you later on and everything, and I'll tell you what I think. Versus, oh, I'm going to go in and slam you because my viewpoint is different than your viewpoint and everything else because my viewpoint is right and because yours is wrong. No, you need to go on ahead and just let it marinate a little bit sometimes too because you're so wrapped up in some stuff too. Whereas like you're in the heat of the moment and it's like, look, this is not a good time for me. I need to go on ahead and think about what you just said and I'll get back to you. But versus some people are just so quick to get in the right versus just checking themselves and analyzing themselves and like, you know what? I need to go on ahead and reevaluate this and then I'll come back to you. I
Yeah,
think that would be the best options and stuff like that too, where you're letting it sit for a while. You're letting it think. I do that all the time with certain things, with certain movie news reports and everything. It's
right.
like, yeah, I'm not that like for instance, I don't know if you listen to some of my older episodes or whatever, but whenever I'm doing my movie news stuff, I wind up saying, "Yeah, I'm not that excited about it." And then after a while, I started thinking about it, maybe 3 weeks or a month, it just marinates with me. I'm like, "You know what? That might actually be a good idea." maybe I want to see that. Maybe I want to see something like that. Maybe that
Yeah,
director actually has a point.
I respect that about you. You know, and I have noticed that in your podcast, and you know, I think it's something I'm sure your audience knows this, but it bears mentioning that you are a person of northern Bostonian background, but you
Right.
grew up in the South, so you have this sort of understanding of both worlds. So I think that also allows you as a reviewer and as a movie person and a film person to understand the different sides of things. And damn, John, I mean, that's what it's about. We have to realize it took me so long to realize it, and I hope that it does not take people your age and my son's age as long as it took for me to realize that there really, truly, 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 truly is two sides to everything, to everything. And if we can't look at it in that way, we're not doing the other person a disservice. We're doing ourselves a disservice.
Mhm. I
Um,
agree 100%.
there's a flow out
Um,
there, and we have to get on it and we have to be with it. And we're all on it, whether we want to accept it or not. Now, you can call it God, you can call it the Holy Spirit, you can call it, Jesus Christ, you can call it the Tao, you can call it anything that you want to call it. And personally, I've called it all those things. But I can tell you, it's there, it's tangible. And at some point, we have to realize this is a river that we're on, whether we want to accept it or not. And we
exactly.
better ride it with love and compassion for the people with us, because that's really what it's all about. That's really where it's
Exactly.
at. Yeah.
So another thing I want to mention is this, okay, too, because this also falls into some other people too, where it's like it's the got you crowd. Like they're looking for something to get somebody on and stuff like that. It's like, oh, I got you. I got what I wanted. I want you to rant. I want you to get angry at me. I want you to do this. I'm like, yeah, that's the crowd I'm trying to avoid. It's the got you crowd. Because I do not like the got you crowd where they're like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead now slander this person because of what this person said versus not checking out the full context of it. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves and everything too. And like I do YouTube shorts. I have somebody that pretty much slammed into me because of the fact that how I was cut. And I'm like, did you even go back? Because the link is inside every single short that I make. I said, did you go back and actually watch it? Or did you just pick out what you wanted and then just decided to bust my balls about it and everything? So I'm
Probably.
like,
Yeah, probably from what you're saying.
right.
Well, so let me ask you, in your opinion, well, you're a bad person to ask because your equitable vibe comes through much more so than when I was your age. It took me a long time to get to a point to understand it. I think I had a bit of a punk rock mentality, and so I think I spent so much of my life arguing. eh, And I've gotten, as anybody who watched Game Day, which I really feel with Game Day, it definitely exercised some of those demons from me, and I think that's part of the within the writing of what I did, where I was understanding what point is it that I'm trying to win, and what is it that I'm trying to do. So lately, I've tried to work at not arguing. And I argue with the people that I love the most, which I find to be absolutely weird, but actually it's not. I think most of us argue with the people that we love the most. And we have this such desire to be right, as you were saying, or
I
to be
think that,
vindicated.
right. And here's the thing with us, we're in this headspace is like, I want people to care about what we're doing to the point where it's like, oh, this person's passionate about what he's doing. And you want that person to love what you're doing, but at the same time, you're not going to be for everybody. And I
Right.
came to that understanding a long time ago. I'm like, there's going to be people that are going to unsubscribe to me. There's going to be people who are like, look, you're not for me. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Go on ahead. There's other YouTube channels. There's other podcasts that you can listen to besides mine. Go on ahead, do what you want to do. That's fine. Thank you for not attacking me. Thank you for explaining to me why you're now leaving. I understand that, and I have nothing but full respect for you for being up and honest with me.
Right.
Versus being, Oh, yeah, I disagree. And instead of, there's differences between having disagreements about a certain scene, and there's a difference between attacking someone just for the sake of attacking someone. And those are the ones that I pretty much ignore now because I had that Bostonian axe, that thing where I want to, that punk rock kind of thing where I want to go after the person, and I've become very defensive and argumentative, and I'm like, wait, and then it took me a couple of years to just like, wait, what am I doing here? I don't know this person. This person doesn't know me.
Right.
So I need to go on ahead and check myself too and reevaluate some things. And then that's whenever I started calming myself down a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, John, I mean, as guys with northeastern backgrounds, it is it's a no bullshit, straight ahead world. Um, I can't begin to tell you how much I love the people in that area. I lived in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is like my childhood home. But I got to tell you, I lived 4 years in New England. I lived in New Hampshire. So I know New Englanders. I know the accent. I know the people. I understand the vibe there. I lived in those places. Central Jersey, South Jersey, North Jersey. I I get it. I get that world, and we're all part of that same world. I think there's something in that place, and in a lot of places in the South and the Midwest, certainly out here, people there's a blue collar middle class aesthetic that's out there that's really just saying, hey, keep it real. You keep it real. I try to keep it real. And I think what we have to stop doing is pointing fingers at each other. We really need to stop pointing fingers at each other. And I really believe that there's a bright future, especially because of young people like yourself, my kids, your audience listening. There's a lot that can be done, and we're just scratching the surface. We'll get past this strike. I really hope not too many people's lives are really harmed by this. And I know it's harming a lot of people's lives right now. And I'm really just praying we get through it. And I know we will, just sooner than later, for a lot of reasons, for everybody else, for myself too. I was definitely on a roll, and I was booking and doing a lot of stuff and really getting some really nice theatrical work. And then
Oh,
this is it.
nice.
This is the break. But that's a very selfish worldview of it. And I know that everyone is going through this. So I'm just hoping we get through it soon.
I
So
think
people like you and me that love movies can go back out and watch them.
exactly. But you know what though, man? Like, yeah, you had those opportunities before, but guess what? I have a feeling, and I have a very good feeling after the strike is over with, you're going to get something a lot bigger than the ones that you had on your list. I just had that feeling about you because of the fact the energy that you brought into game day alone and everything, and your passion and care for the character that you were playing, that told me a lot about you and the self-care that you have with it. That shows me that you have something bigger on the horizons and
Well,
everything.
Don, that's a super nice thing to say, and I really thank you for saying it. I really do believe it's our duty as someone who is on a podcast that's talking to people and they're listening to what you have to say and they're interested in what you have to say, or as an actor or a writer and we're in front of people, they just want to see the true self. They just want to see the truth. We can put on all kinds of human suits and characteristics and characters and vibes and archetypes, but what it comes down to is you got to give people that thing inside. And sometimes I feel like I failed in doing it pretty badly because I felt like I was so afraid of what people thought about me, or, oh
That's
man,
how yeah,
it's hard, oh man, this guy's going to think I suck. And I really respect this woman, and she doesn't think what I did was good. And you start to try to figure out, well, how do I please her? Or how do I please him? Or what do I do? And then when it's all said and done, really all you need to do is say, all right, look, I'm going to tell the truth, and I'm going to lay it out, and I'm going to ground this, and I'm going to trust the director to say, I'm going to cut this at the right spots, but I'm going to give it all that I can give it. And I really think that's the most important thing of an actor. And I think that's what makes some of these actors, so many of these actors, God, there's so many great actors out there. I watch Meryl Streep, and I'm just humbled. I just look at her, and she's just so grounded, and truth in everything she does. She's just beautiful in every way. And if I could just be even the smallest part of that world, I'm happy. And I'm thankful to God that I can make a living at this, which I'm able to do. And if it doesn't progress past this, John, I will thank God for what I have. And if it does,
Same.
I'll thank him even more.
Same here, man. Because here's the thing. I mean, yeah, I have a podcast now, but who's to say tomorrow that something happens to where I can't do this anymore? You know what I'm saying? Because tomorrow's not promised at all either. So it's
But
like,
tomorrow, somebody may see what you do and go, this guy's personable. This guy's intelligent. This guy's cool. Let's
yeah,
have him do this other thing, man.
right,
Who knows, right? We don't
right,
know.
exactly.
Go, man. And I could definitely see it going that way for you. And,
Thank you.
you know, that's a great thing. We need people like you. We need people. It struck me the first interview that we had together. You just have such a positive vibe, and you can tell it's not put on like Susie cream cheese, like, oh God, everything's great. You're like a person that really chooses to look at the positive side of things. There's so many positive things, so many great actors, so much great music. There's politicians that do care. Believe it or not, there's people out there that care, and not just Democrats and not just Republicans, both sides of the equation on all things. So coming together, people like yourself, people like my sons, I feel, people like your audience, they care about making things better and making this a better place to be. And
Because
that can
that's what I
only
want to
be
do. Like, I want to, whenever I first started Movie Loves Unite, I wanted to create a community where people feel safe to listen to a podcast or watch a YouTube video without having to feel judged. Because I've seen it where people's like, well, you're wrong. I'm like, why are you telling your audience that they're wrong? It's a subjective, film is subjective,
no,
it is not
no
measured.
one's wrong. Like I said, unless it's a genocide or prejudice or
Right,
unless it's murder. No one's wrong aside from those horrible things. But
right,
otherwise, it's just opinions.
right. And,
Like
you
the
know,
dude
you,
says in Big Lebowski, that's just your opinion, man.
man. Exactly,
True.
exactly, dude. Exactly, man. Because here's the thing. In order to have the business that we're in, we actually have to have tough skin. We actually have to take criticism where criticism is, as long as it's constructive criticism and
Yeah.
everything too. And I'm glad I have my two co-hosts. I'm glad I have Alex. I'm glad I have Rossie. Because without them two and everything, I would be in self-doubt. I would actually do this. I'm like, look, am I wrong for questioning my own insecurities? He goes, no, you're not, because you care about what you're doing. If you didn't
Right.
care about what you're doing, you would mean questioning it. I was like, I didn't think about it like that. So I'm glad I have them to be able to look at and realize, okay, that they care about me and they care about what we're doing. So
And
that
they're
means a
good
lot to me.
guys, and that comes across like it does with you as well. I feel the same way. The other half of my life is being a musician, and I'm in a band. John, I started playing in bands. This is no joke. 16
That's what I
years old.
wanted to know. Like, how did you get into the whole band thing? Because look, when you were on a Bronx Tale, it was like, yeah, I got a gig right after that. Like, what? So I was like, wait, you're rocking out. So I want to know where that started from.
Well, at the time I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, going to high school, and I played a gig in Atlanta with a fake ID. I was playing in bands at 16, and I came out to Los Angeles, and literally I was with William Morris and doing television shows, and I was playing in punk rock bands at night because that was the world that really turned me on and I was excited about. But honestly, man, and I am to this day. I was like, the Rolling Stones were my life. Like I
And
loved
I love the
Keith
Stones.
Richards.
Yeah.
You know, I studied 5-string open G tuning, and it was my life. So for me, I loved both things so much. I was, accepted to Juilliard. I was going to, acting schools. I was at the Globe learning Shakespeare. I was doing all this stuff. In the same respect, I was playing at punk rock gigs at night. And I felt like I sucked at both things, but I loved both things. And I wanted to like just get as much as I could of it into who I was. It took me, John. It took me, and I had some really great bands. I played in bands with my ex-wife. I played in bands with my best friend. We had great bands. We had some shows that were just absolutely mind-blowingly amazing. But this group of guys that I'm playing with right now, the Smoking Cobras, I have never loved a group of guys more. Kevin, Tony, and Ed. I just love these guys. They have my back. I've got their back. And if God gave me a blessing and I did, the next 3 Adam McKay projects, and I was in Star Wars, and I did this, and I did that, and whatever. I had a series. There's nothing in this world short of health that could stop me from playing with those guys all over the world. And we have played all over the world. And I am certainly not because I'm a good singer, because I am the most average of singers, but I give it all that I've got. And those guys give it all they got with more skill than I have. And I'm just so thankful to be in a band like that. And I can't tell you how much that means to me in my life. It means the world.
That's pretty awesome, dude, because you have like kind of like a Johnny Depp kind of thing where he started off in a rock band and then he went into acting and stuff like that. So he had like that punk rock kind of image and stuff like that too. So
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of interesting how you mentioned, oh, I have a gig right after this. I'm like, what? It's like, so I actually had to find out more because you're it's so awesome just to be able to talk to you. And and I'm also a huge Stones fan. I'm an Aerosmith fan. I'm into heavy metal, new metal. It doesn't matter. I'm into the rock music and stuff like that too. And I like to actually hear some stuff from you and everything too, because I'm a huge music buff and everything too. And a matter of fact, I have this new segment on the podcast called Intermission, which is basically just a laid back show where we basically talk about anything like comfort movies, things like that. Matter of fact, our first segment was on the new Avenged Sevenfold album that we did a review on.
Avenged
So yeah.
Sevenfold. Yes. My old drummer's son played with them.
Oh, you got to be kidding me, man!
No. So yeah. And yeah, listen, my stuff that I write myself is fully, wholly, completely on the alt side or alt country, or even things like anything from Ministry to the Smiths to the Dead Kennedys to Arctic Monkeys. I mean, my personal stuff goes there. But my band, which has got me way more stuff, way more money and way more traveling and acceptance than my original stuff has. I had record deals and none of them came to anything, even though I love those people and I love that time. This band is playing these songs that these people wrote that we take for granted, like Wooly Bully. How many, we've all heard Wooly Bully,
Yep.
right? We all know Wooly Bully, but they put Wooly Bully in greeting cards when you open it up. But it's an amazing track that they cut live that is 6-year-olds know Wooly Bully. They know it. And they go crazy when we play it. And so it's such, I don't know, John, I don't know how to put it. It's, it's sort of like, could you imagine if people are given the chance to actually paint a Picasso as good as Picasso? Not I'm saying that we're as good as those tracks, but at least as professionally as Picasso did it. And
Right,
people
like
go, wow,
like a
that's what
cover
it looks
song.
like. Right.
Right.
But when I was a young guy, I thought, man, cover music, that's bullshit, and that's like so sellout, and it was just so stupid on my part because I didn't realize these are just great songs. And I thought about my 2 favorite bands ever, which is the Beatles and the Stones, and they're the world's greatest cover bands. And then the band that you love, that I love too, I've seen them 4 times, Aerosmith. Aerosmith was a cover band, man. Steven Tyler used to go to New York at 16 years old and play on records. He was a session guy. According to him, I don't know if it's true, but he said that he played on Hang On Sloopy, and the guitarist was Michael McKean from Spinal Tap, because they were these young guys playing on this stuff. That shit, John, I'm sorry, that geeks me out beyond words. I love that stuff, man. I love it. So
That geeks me out though too. Like No, like no kidding, man. Like I'm a huge. I also like Bruce Springsteen. I like stuff like that. I'm into like classic rock and things like that too, and that kind of stuff. It just geeks me out. I'm also a huge music nerd. In case anybody didn't know that, I am a music nerd too. Besides a movie lover, I'm also a music lover too, and
Dude,
everything.
me too. I mean, I watched. This is kind of a. This is how ridiculous I am. My wife looked over at me and she's like, "Are you crying?" It was like I watched that last Stones special that just came out last year, and it did each person. It did Mick, it did Keith, it did Ron Wood, it did Charlie. And I got a Charlie, man. I'm crying, man. I cannot begin to tell you how much the Rolling Stones mean to me. Like Stanley Kubrick means something to me. Like Nicholson means something to me. Like Marlon Brando means something to me. Like, these people, it's, I don't know. I'm so thankful to be in a world where I could see them. Like I could see Hank Aaron. Like I saw Muhammad Ali. I could see the James Brown. I could see those people in my life. Man, we're a very lucky generation. Anyone out there who's in their 50s, and pushing 60, get on your knees and count your lucky stars, because we got to see some badass people, from literally Michael Jordan to Bruce Springsteen, man, to De Niro. We've seen some
The
people.
crazy era of film, pop culture, everything else involved within the 70s, 80s, even with my culture with the 90s and everything too. It's just amazing how mind blowing at how things evolve over time and how much of a cultural thing that you never know that what kind of cultural aspect or anything like that that it could actually land on either. So,
Yeah,
but
for sure. And you're quite a bit younger than me, but you've had a good run too, man. You've seen a lot of stuff, man. And then you guys have had people, like Tupac and
Biggie and Eminem, and then
Biggie,
you also
for
Snoop Dogg, and then you also have
Snoop Dogg. Dude, he's
right.
still, that guy's an institution, you know? I mean, this is an amazing artist. This guy created this persona that is just so incredibly infectious and lovable and fun and cool. God, there's so many people like this. Kobe Bryant, dude, you saw Kobe
Right.
Bryant, man. Like people in 100 years, if basketball hopefully is still
Not
alive
to
in 100
mention
years,
Shaquille O'Neal. We had
Kill
Dennis Rodman,
O'Neal,
Scottie Pippen. We got to see the Bulls go
Steph
from where
Curry,
they were to 1997 with their championships and just the fire that Jordan brought to that team and the light
Tom
that they brought
Brady,
to it.
Tom Brady,
Tom, yep,
dude. Okay,
and Gronk and all those
I
guys, Hightower and everybody. It's just
I know
crazy on the level of stuff that my generation has seen and everything, and it's just going to get more interesting as time moves on and
it
everything
is.
too.
And God bless you for saying that. That is so cool. I always hate when people my age. I don't hate it because that's too harsh. It always pisses me off when people my age act like, oh man, it wasn't. You know, when we were kids, it was like this, or I dug this, and this is when it was really happening. It's happening all the time. You can take every
Mhm.
single generation, man, every single
And every
decade,
generation has their own thing. Like seriously,
everyone, and they're all awesome, man. And anyone who doesn't think that's the case, well, they're full of shit, and they need to like get unrigid and get it, because it's great. And if they don't think that their parents' stuff or their grandparents' shit was great, then the young people need to get that, because that shit was great too, man. It was,
exactly,
like you said it great. Every decade, something amazing every time.
exactly. And you know what? I cannot even. With that being said, I don't think I have anything else to actually talk about without those last words. So, I just want to say thank you so much, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on here. Not only that, but tomorrow night I'm gonna have Rossie's gonna have her show going on. She has her gaming show that she has. She has like a variety show that she does.
Oh, that's cool.
So she has different things going on her channel. It's called Rossie Talks, about everything in between. So guys, go on ahead if you're into video gaming and stuff like that. It's going to be at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time for that show. I will be back again on Thursday, as a matter of fact, to do a Twisted Metal review with Dawn from Multiverse of Geekdom. And then after that, yeah, Twisted Metal is based on a video game. So
I played that video game many a time.
I love it. So we're going to be doing that at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time for that one. And then on Saturday, I will have Doom Generation Podcast doing a Serial Mom review. So that's everything that's going on over here. The Serial Mom review will be, of course, at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time on Saturday. With that being said, thank you again, Dean. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for everyone that's listening and watching right now. I do appreciate you guys tuning in and watching this. Do me a big favor. If you're still watching this, subscribe to the channel, like the channel if you see anything that you like. If not, that's okay too. You know, I do appreciate everyone just tuning in. And always until next time, guys, have a great and safe night. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Appreciate you again, man. I do appreciate this.